Hey, and welcome back to another exciting episode of the Ultimate WordPress Guide podcast. I'm your host, Peter Schoenfeld, and thanks for tuning in. In this episode, we'll talk about search engine optimization, or SEO for short, what it is, why it's important, and if you don't have the budget to fork out potentially thousands of dollars to work on your website's SEO, what some of the best practices are you can follow yourself to ensure Google gives you a thumbs up on your content and get you ranking higher than your competition. Now, if you haven't done so already, subscribe to our podcast on Apple and Spotify. Check out our website at ultimatewpguide.com, our YouTube channel, The Ultimate WordPress Guide, and follow us on social media for tips, tricks, reviews, and great resources on everything WordPress. Now, I cannot stress this enough. Just designing a website that looks great is not going to get you a truckload of visitors. You need exposure, and the right exposure. And since nearly 70% of searches start in a search engine, optimization of your content to ensure you're more visible is an absolute no-brainer. As of earlier this year, Google holds about 92+% of total search market share, followed by YouTube, then Yahoo, Bing, and Amazon. So if you want to get noticed, I strongly suggest you start there. The ultimate goal, should you want to get noticed, is to stand out. There is a lot of things to consider when it comes to SEO. What to do, what not to do, what tools to use, what practices to follow, the list goes on. It can sound rather intimidating and even too complex for us mere mortals, but trust me when I say, if you do your homework on it and you implement the right practices from as early as when you start to build a new website, you'll become the king of SEO before you know it, whether it be for your own website or for a client's. Now, I won't be covering every single detail in this episode because there's just way too much to cover. Today, I'll break it down, tell you what it's all about, and in future episodes, we'll dive into the details. In its rawest form, SEO is a set of principles, guidelines, and practices you need to follow to ensure Google wants to serve your site to your potential site visitors first. And if you stick to these principles and keep working on it and maintaining it, I guarantee you that you won't be disappointed. Very broadly classified, SEO consists of three main components: on-page, off-page, and technical SEO. But that's too broad, so we've broken that down into 8 more digestible and logical pillars. Each of these has a specific focus area, some are more complex than others, and for some, you'll realize soon enough that it actually is common sense. The first is, of course, the basics. This is what you do first before you touch anything else. Here you essentially need to set up your website to be visible. You cannot track and improve which you do not know, and Google cannot rank what it doesn't know about. This entails establishing your content on all the platforms where people will be looking for you, and then of course being able to track traffic on various fronts to see how your site is performing. Now, in this area, we're essentially talking about setting your site up in Google Search Console, Bing and Yandex webmaster tools, setting up and configuring Google Analytics and Google Tag Manager, installing an SEO plugin on your site, setting up HTTPS and improving your trust rank, verifying domain identity, setting up monitoring to ensure your site is up, at least most of the time, keyword tracking, and so on. Next up is the user experience, and this deals with all the stuff that makes your site easy to use for visitors. After all, websites are built for them. When we talk about UX SEO, we refer to everything around SEO-friendly permalinks, clean and short URLs, load time, 404 pages if content goes missing for whatever reason, or a link gets broken and visitors don't know where to go next. Having easy and intuitive search on your site if you have loads of content. Web accessibility, usability, readability are also very important factors. It's about knowing how visitors behave on your site, what they like, what they don't, and by reviewing heat maps of visitor activity, then altering and optimizing the UX to generate the best experience for your visitors. The third pillar is performance, and it goes hand in hand with UX. This is all about the things you have to do to ensure your site is served up to your visitors as quickly as possible. People don't hang around to wait for a site to load. Ideal website load time should be between 2 to 5 seconds. However, Each second beyond 2 seconds results in a greater bounce rate. For mobile sites, the bar is even higher. If it doesn't load in 1 to 2 seconds, studies have shown that more than half of site visits are abandoned if a page takes longer than 3 seconds to load. Now, performance starts with selecting the right hosting provider, and refer back to episode 3 where I talked about what you should look for in a web host. Then you need to consider things like content delivery networks, or CDN for short, compression and optimization of media, that's your images and video, caching, minification of HTML, CSS and JavaScript to serve your code to the browser as small as possible to reduce load time. That means canning unnecessary things on your site that's not being used. This means removing unused themes and plugins and ensuring your site is always updated and databases optimized. And of course, a very important design principle, which is ensuring your DOM, or document object model, is reduced. All this means is building your site as light as possible and not cluttering web pages with too much code that the browser needs to understand and render. The fourth pillar is technical SEO. It is the process of ensuring a website meets the technical requirements of modern search engines, period, with the goal of improved organic rankings. Important elements of technical SEO include crawling and indexing and rendering and website architecture. Now, technical SEO is a broad yet very exciting field. Some people argue that it falls under on-page SEO. However, it is also widely considered a discipline in its own right. Here we talk about structured data markup, canonicalization, hreflang, and more are classes of technical SEO. Here you need to consider things like sitemaps and AMP, or accelerated mobile pages, mobile site friendliness, and so on. Next up is content, and we've all heard the saying that content is king. Serving relevant content is important. Doing research to understand what your visitor is looking for is key. Structure your content to tell a story and make sure that it's optimized for both people and search engines. Here we have to focus on high quality copywriting, long form content to ensure a good HTML to text ratio. Use appropriate tags and taxonomies to order your content. Remove old SEO and duplicate content, ensuring your content is up to date and relevant and updated regularly. Now, EAT is an important factor that Google uses to evaluate the overall quality of a web page. EAT stands for expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness, so always ensure that your content meets that goal. The sixth pillar is on-page SEO, also known as on-site SEO. It covers the tactics that you should use on your site that help search engines to better understand and rank your content. On-page SEO has changed a lot over the years, so it's important to keep up with the latest practices. From creating great relevant content on your site, to choosing the right keywords, to optimizing title tags, use of the right meta tags and descriptions, using the right H tags, to internal linking, writing authentic content that is easily readable on an 8th grade level, correct tagging media, and much more. These all fall under on-page SEO and forms the basis for every piece of new content that you create for your site. Next then is off-page SEO, which is pretty much the opposite of on-page. Off-page SEO includes those tactics that relate to activities carried out away from your website. Link building is often considered to be the main off-page tactic, but this also includes tactics such as content marketing, social media, appearing on podcasts, landing reviews for your business, competitor analysis, and more. Here you want to ensure you have as many reputable sources as possible driving traffic back to your site. A few things to consider here is advertising, document sharing, RSS feeds, and asking people you've worked with for links. And pretty much any means to get your brand mentioned somewhere to get people to come to your website. The last but certainly not the least is local SEO. This is the practice of ensuring you're noticeable in your surrounding area. This involves getting yourself listed in business directories, on Google and Apple Maps, claiming your Google My Business listing, building local citations, and ensuring consistency of your contact information everywhere you have a presence. It's geotagging of media, getting quality reviews for your business, just to name a few. And here again, both local and off-page SEO goes hand in hand. SEO done right is a massive task, but probably the most important thing to consider for any web designer or owner. As I said at the beginning of this episode, just being a pretty face is not going to land you any business. Luckily, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of tools and resources available to help you with SEO, to take the guesswork out. Some of them are free and some of them come with a premium, but you get what you pay for. SEO doesn't have to be hard, but it will take time and it will take effort. SEO should be ingrained in your website building practices, and believe me when I say you won't regret what you put in and your customers will love you for it. We've just scratched the surface today, so join me over the coming episodes where I'll dive deeper into each of the 8 topics mentioned here. I'll share an abundance of knowledge and experience that I've gathered. We'll talk about what to do, what not to do in each of these categories, and I'll be sharing all of the tools in my toolkit that has helped me a great deal in getting really good at SEO. Calling myself an expert is perhaps a long shot, but I've learned a lot over the years and can definitely consider myself an experienced and seasoned practitioner in this field. So stick around. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on Apple and Spotify. Check out our website at ultimatewpguide.com. Follow us on YouTube and social media for tips, tricks, reviews, and great resources on everything WordPress. Talk to you again soon. Bye for now.